attacked Rachel! She's bleeding out! Hurry! We need medics now!
The security footage from March 18, 2024, captured everything. Rachel Langford, 31, had just finished what should have been a routine morning session at OceanRealm Park in San Diego. But what happened in those final moments would expose a pattern of negligence that the park had hidden for years. And the emails I'm about to reveal show that management knew exactly what was going to happen. They'd calculated the risk, decided Rachel's life was worth less than their weekend revenue, and sent her to die. Rachel wasn't supposed to be in the water that morning. She'd been reassigned to dry work only, educational presentations from behind the safety barrier. The reassignment had come after she'd reported feeling uncomfortable with Neptune's recent behavior, noting in her trainer log that he'd been displaying what she called inappropriate focus during their sessions. But OceanRealm's star trainer had called in sick, and management needed someone experienced for the 10 a.m. show. They called Rachel at 8:47 that morning. She hesitated for 12 seconds before answering. That hesitation, captured on the call recording, would later become evidence in the criminal negligence case. She knew something was wrong, but she said yes anyway. For 7 years, Rachel Langford had dedicated her life to marine mammals. She'd started as a volunteer at 19, worked her way through a marine biology degree while cleaning tanks at night, and finally earned her position as a senior trainer at OceanRealm. Colleagues described her as methodical, cautious, someone who followed protocols to the letter. Rachel was the one who actually read the safety manuals, former trainer Marcus Webb told investigators. She'd quiz us on emergency procedures during lunch breaks. She once reported her own best friend for skipping a safety check. If anyone should have been safe, it was her. But Rachel didn't know about the email chain that had been circulating among upper management for 3 days. An internal memo from OceanRealm's veterinary team, marked urgent and confidential, reported that their largest orca, Neptune, had been showing signs of extreme agitation. The 11,000-pound male had been ramming the gate between pools with enough force to bend the steel bars, vocalizing at frequencies that indicated severe distress, and refusing food intermittently. Dr. Robert Chun, the head veterinarian, had written, "Neptune is displaying pre-attack behavior patterns identical to those documented before the 2019 incident at Marineland Moscow. Recommend immediate cessation of all water work until full behavioral assessment completed." That memo had triggered a flurry of emails between executives. CFO Michael Harrison had responded, "Canceling water work means canceling shows. We're looking at $1.8 million in lost revenue over a 3-day weekend." CEO Patricia Blackwood had written back, "What's our liability exposure if something happens?" The legal team had replied, "Manageable with our current insurance and NDAs. Maximum exposure $20 to $30 million. The final email in the chain, sent at 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, came from Blackwood. Maintain current show schedule. Increase insurance coverage Monday. Neptune had arrived at OceanRealm just 6 months earlier, transferred from a facility in Japan after it closed due to financial troubles. His history was troubling but deliberately obscured. The transfer documents mentioned minor behavioral issues, but failed to disclose that Neptune had severely injured 2 trainers in Tokyo, breaking one trainer's pelvis and nearly drowning another. The Japanese facility had actually paid OceanRealm $2 million to take Neptune, essentially bribing them to remove a liability. OceanRealm's acquisition team had rushed the transfer, eager to add a new breeding male to their program and pocket the cash. Due diligence took a back seat to opportunity. What the public never knew was that Neptune had spent 3 years in complete isolation at the Japanese facility. After the second trainer injury, they'd kept him alone in a medical pool barely twice his body length. For an animal that would normally swim up to 100 miles a day with a complex family pod, this isolation was psychological torture. Marine biologists now know that isolation causes irreversible psychological damage in orcas. Their brains literally shrink from lack of social stimulation. The area is responsible for emotional regulation atrophy, while regions associated with aggression become hyperactive. Neptune hadn't just been transferred to OceanRealm. A psychologically shattered predator had been unleashed into their program. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a cetacean behavioral specialist who reviewed Neptune's case, later testified. The warning signs were catastrophic. Neptune displayed every indicator of severe psychological trauma. Repetitive swimming patterns, self-mutilation against tank walls, and most disturbing, what we call predatory drift, where captive orcas begin viewing humans not as companions, but as prey items. His brain scans showed neurological damage consistent with prolonged torture. OceanRealm either didn't know or didn't care. They knew. Internal documents proved they'd conducted their own neurological assessment 2 weeks after Neptune arrived. The results were so disturbing that the examining veterinarian had immediately requested a meeting with the board of directors. That meeting never happened. The report was filed away, marked privileged and confidential, and the veterinarian was transferred to a different facility with a substantial raise and an ironclad NDA. The morning of March 18th started with an omen. Rachel arrived at 6 a.m. to find a maintenance worker pressure washing blood off the deck near Neptune's pool. During the night, Neptune had caught a pelican that had landed in his tank. He'd played with it for over an hour, tossing it in the air, catching it, slowly dismembering it while it was still alive. The security guard who'd witnessed it had written in the log, "Never seen anything like it." He was enjoying it. Rachel read that log entry. She stood there for a full minute, according to security footage, just staring at the words. Then she walked to her supervisor's office. The conversation wasn't recorded, but her supervisor, Brian Matthews, later admitted she'd expressed serious concerns about entering the water with Neptune. His response, according to his own testimony, was, "Rachel, you're the best we have. If anyone can handle him, it's you. Besides, we've got 300 people who already bought tickets. You want to be the one to explain to their kids why the show's canceled." At 7:30, Rachel had a brief conversation with junior trainer Ashley Rodriguez about Neptune's feeding response from the previous day. "He wouldn't take fish from my hand," Ashley said. "He kept staring at my arm instead." Rachel asked if Ashley had reported it. "Brian said not to be dramatic," Ashley replied. That was the moment Rachel should have walked away. Instead, she went to prepare for the show. At 9:45, she received the call asking her to cover the waterworks segment. She hesitated, asked if someone else was available, then agreed when told there was no one else certified for Neptune's pool. What Rachel didn't know was that 2 other trainers had actually refused the assignment that morning. Both had worked with Neptune the previous week and felt uncomfortable with his behavior. One of them, James Crawford, had actually written a formal refusal, stating, "Neptune is displaying hunting behavior toward trainers. I will not enter the water with him." That refusal was never filed. Brian Matthews had torn it up and thrown it away. At 9:55, Rachel entered the backstage area. She checked her wetsuit, tested her recall whistle, and reviewed Neptune's behavioral chart from the previous day. Everything looked normal on paper because the real observations had been sanitized. Where trainers had written aggressive, supervisors had changed it to energetic. Where they'd noted predatory, it became playful. The chart Rachel read was fiction, designed to create a paper trail that would protect the park from liability. The show began at 10 a.m. sharp. 200 guests filled the stadium, mostly families with young children excited to see the orcas up close. Rachel's voice came through clear and confident over the speakers as she explained orca intelligence and their complex social structures. "These magnificent animals form lifelong family bonds," she said, not knowing she had less than 8 minutes to live. "In the wild, orcas stay with their mothers for life, swimming thousands of miles together across the open ocean." At 10:04, Rachel entered the water. The crowd applauded. Neptune circled the pool's perimeter, his dorsal fin cutting through the water in smooth arcs. For 3 minutes, everything proceeded perfectly. Neptune responded to cues, performed his trained behaviors, and seemed engaged with the routine. But trainers watching from backstage noticed something Rachel couldn't see from water level. Neptune's eye movement was wrong. Instead of tracking Rachel's hand signals, he was watching her body position, calculating distance and angles like a predator stalking prey. His breathing pattern changed. Backstage trainer Jennifer Cole later testified, "I've worked with orcas for 15 years. Neptune was hyperventilating slightly, the way they do before a high-energy hunt. I reached for my radio to warn Rachel, but Brian grabbed my wrist. He said, 'Don't you dare ruin this show.' I'll never forgive myself for listening to him." At 10:07, Rachel gave the signal for Neptune to approach for a dorsal tow, a standard behavior where the trainer holds the orca's dorsal fin while being pulled through the water. Neptune approached, but too fast, too focused. Rachel tried to redirect him with a hand signal. He ignored it. In the footage, you can see the exact moment Rachel realized something was wrong. Her body stiffened. Her hand moved to her emergency recall whistle. But she was in the middle of the pool, 30 feet from safety. She never got to use the whistle. Neptune struck from below with explosive force, launching Rachel 15 feet into the air. She hit the water hard, disoriented. Before she could surface, Neptune was on her. His jaws closed around her torso, teeth designed for gripping seals penetrating her wetsuit instantly. The crowd's cheers turned to screams as the water turned red. Parents grabbed their children, trying to shield their eyes, but it was too late. 200 people, including 43 children under the age of 10, watched Rachel Langford die. Emergency protocols activated immediately, but they were pathetically inadequate. Staff deployed the acoustic recall tones that Neptune had been ignoring for weeks. They dropped the safety nets that were designed for a 5,000-pound orca, not an 11,000-pound giant. They initiated the emergency drain sequence that would take 20 minutes to lower the pool's water level enough to matter. Nothing worked. Neptune had entered what marine biologists call a possession state, where the orca becomes completely fixated on their prey, ignoring all external stimuli. For 4 minutes and 37 seconds, Neptune held Rachel underwater. He dragged her to the bottom of the 30-foot pool, then brought her to the surface, then pulled her down again. Each time she surfaced, witnesses could hear her screaming. Then the screaming stopped. When Neptune finally released her, she floated motionless. The medical team pulled her from the pool, but she was already gone. The autopsy would later reveal she died from a combination of drowning and massive internal trauma. Her rib cage had been crushed, multiple organs punctured, 7 ribs broken. Her left lung collapsed. Her spine severed in 2 places. OceanRealm's initial statement, released just 3 hours after Rachel's death, called it a tragic accident during a routine performance. They claimed Rachel had made an error in judgment, sending conflicting signals that confused Neptune. They actually blamed her for her own death. But the investigation that followed revealed the truth. This was a preventable death caused by systematic failures, hidden warnings, and an industry that values spectacle over safety. The park never mentioned the veterinary warnings, the incomplete transfer records, the refused assignments, or that Rachel wasn't even supposed to be in the water that day. 6 months later, after a criminal investigation that resulted in charges against 3 executives, OceanRealm quietly closed its orca program. Neptune was transferred to a sea pen facility where he remains today, isolated from human contact, slowly dying from the psychological damage that can never be undone. The park settled with Rachel's family for $43 million. But no amount of money could change what happened that morning, or bring back the woman who dedicated her life to animals that the industry had turned into killers. Rachel's death wasn't an isolated incident. It was the inevitable result of forcing apex predators to perform for our entertainment. Every ticket sold, every show attended, supports an industry built on suffering. Rachel Langford believed she was different, that her training and experience could keep her safe. She was wrong. The system killed her as surely as Neptune did. And somewhere in San Diego, in a storage locker that OceanRealm maintains but never opens, her wetsuit still hangs next to her whistle, her safety equipment that couldn't save her, and a laminated photo of her with Neptune from her first day, when she still believed that love could overcome instinct, that kindness could tame a predator, that the show could go on without consequence. It can't. It never could. Rachel learned that too late.